Hey, podcast fans, do you play daily fantasy golf? If so, you should check out Draft. Did you know that your chances of winning on Draft are almost 3 times better than on FanDuel or DraftKings? Well, data shows that roughly 90% of us lose on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, over 40% of the money goes to just 1% of the players. If you're not a pro and you're not spending hours a day on fantasy, then you should be playing Draft. You'll win more often. It's statistically proven, and it's much easier. Frank, I cashed in on my first attempt last week for the Honda Classic. I don't remember the last time I even won on DraftKings. I get lost in those huge salary cap games, and Draft has just been so easy and so much fun.
Yeah, Mike, Draft is the ideal place to play fantasy sports. Not only do you have their fun and quick-hitting non-salary cap leagues, I'm also loving their simple snake drafts, which are becoming increasingly popular. And get this, you can do drafts anytime, anywhere. They last for just one tournament, and they take only minutes to complete. So download Draft now on your iPhone or Android device. Just search Draft in the App Store. It's going to pop up first. Be sure to enter promo code GOLFPODCAST when you download, and you'll even get a 100% deposit bonus. Again, search Draft in the App Store and be sure to enter that promo code Golf Podcast. For more info, check out www.playdraft.com and start winning some easy money today.
Welcome to the Golf Podcast, presented by Golficity, where we bring you the tips, instruction, and support you need to get the most out of your golf game. And now your hosts, Frank and Mike.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Golf Podcast. So, Mike, we've got some big news. We finally got to get out on the course a little bit, right? Tell us about it. I know you played last week.
Yeah, caught that 75-degree, random Thursday last week up here in the Northeast, and I went out, played 9. Great experience. Didn't play that well. I mean, I had a few more double bogeys than I'd like, but what can I expect? The greens were wet. I mean, the conditions weren't ideal, but it felt so darn good to swing. Frank, I even got the Arco system up and going for the first time. I was dying to get that on the clubs before the first round, and it was actually really neat. Got to learn a lot about where I'm going, with my swing so early in the season. So hopefully I could fix it before the real season begins. But overall, beautiful day, great round, just great feeling, to swing again. How about you?
Yeah, man, this weather's crazy, but you're right. I think everybody, with a set of clubs was out there when we just had that random couple of days. And then a day later, it was back to snowing. But same thing. It was just too tempting. Up here, I'm a little north of you. Our greens weren't open yet. Just temporary, so I don't have a score. But what I did is my father and I went out there. We walked 9 holes, played 9 holes in an hour and 15 minutes. It was a blast. Just getting out there and getting to swing. One funny thing, it's like, I can't even believe I'm admitting this here because most people would run and hide, but on my first swing of the year, now you gotta understand, I haven't been on a golf course since October, because I think that's where the temperatures finally dipped and everything closed down. So I've just been practicing with, my training aids and stuff like that around the house. Well, I guess I got a little too ambitious. I was working on hitting up on the ball with my driver. I whiffed. Dude, I missed the ball. All I could do was laugh. And my father was laughing, and he was just like, all right, let's settle down. So,
right.
I can definitely say I came into the 2017 season swinging.
Yes, that's for sure.
Swinging for the fences. But, good thing is I quickly corrected it. It was still wet, no roll. And I'll tell you what, I hit one of my longest drives ever. So, and all it was about is just slowing it down, getting the timing and rhythm back. And it's interesting because it's something we're going to talk about in tonight's show. We're going to talk about warming up and effective warm-up routines, especially when you're limited on time. But we talked about this in the last episode. We seem to be touching on it a lot. What it really comes down to is just finding that rhythm and finding that groove. It really doesn't take much to be off in your swing to have a mistake. And that's a drastic mistake, right? But there's so many aspects of it. Like I said, rhythm, but there's also the consistency of setup, right? I always talk about that, like making sure everything is set up in a way before you start your swing to set yourself up for success. The other side of me also swinging up on it, I was teeing the ball much lower than what I'm used to teeing it. You know, when I'm in the season, we talked about, 2-3 episodes. We talked about how high to tee the ball. I'm in a rhythm. I mark my tees. I know how high to tee it. Well, you know, being away from doing that for months, you know, I just got to a point where I just stuck the tee in too far and I wasn't used to it. So I had to get back in my groove and back in my rhythm. So it can happen to anybody. It was, you know, when things like that happen, you just got to stop, laugh it off. Don't let it get in your head. Move on. That's what I did. And I quickly recovered from it. I hit the ball well. You know, I hit a couple of good shots and I'm happy with it. Also, speaking of gadgets, you mentioned the Arcos, which I didn't get to use because temporary greens, you know, and I was playing multiple balls, just getting out there, getting a rhythm. It was pure practice session.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I actually went over the weekend. I picked up the new Apple Watch, which I've had my sights on it, and there's been a lot of people in the Facebook group and, commenting and emailing, just kind of asking us for some reviews for some of the different apps and how they interact with that. So, and unfortunately I kept telling them, well, we don't have it, so we haven't tested it yet, but now I'm going to be testing a bunch of them this summer. I can give people some feedback in that regard. But for me too, I always say, like, I don't work well with distractions in my game, Mike. And when I have to be constantly pulling out that phone, you know, and that's why I like the Arcos, because I don't have to interact with it. It kind of just tracks it. But even for the simple fact of like GPS, I use it for like distances and stuff like that. Just being able to flash down and look at my wrist is a lot better. That's why a lot of people use the GPS watch, but now I can have my phone still running it. So I haven't tested it yet. I'm excited to do so, and I'll definitely report back here how that goes.
So being new to Arcos myself, I noticed you have to leave the phone in the pocket. With the watch, can you put the phone in the cart?
Either way, I think you can put the phone in the cart. Because,
really? I was reading the instructions that said keep the phone in the front. Because
that's probably best practice, but realistically, those, and I've done it before, those sensors that they use, same thing with the watch, it's all Bluetooth. And Bluetooth range, you know, conservatively is 20 feet, but I think it goes even further out, like 50 feet. The thing is, they don't want you to not register a shot because whatever, but as long as you're near the cart, from my experience, it's always worked. You know, the Bluetooth carries at least that far. Now, if you're going to walk all the way across the fairway, you can't expect it to be, but if you drive the cart up to the ball, I think it should perfectly work.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, what about phone calls during mid-swing, mid-putt? Have you experienced that in the round?
I try to do the do not disturb or
okay,
just turn
so that option
off.
Is there. That's good.
Yeah, whatever you can, because that
so your wrist vibrating during a putt?
Your wrist vibrating, your backswing, forget about it. That's a recipe for a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. But that's cool.
You know what? Just like you were saying, it felt great to get out there, and I can't wait to be playing more regularly so we can talk about some of the stuff that we're working on here. We can give our feedback. And I'm excited to do that. And we saw too in the Facebook group, a lot of people got out there all across the northern United States, because it was just so abnormally warm. And we saw people just playing as much as they could, posting videos, posting, photos in the group. So we appreciate that. I love seeing that.
Yeah. You know, it was funny, Frank, being that it was February in New Jersey, a lot of the people out there on the course were in jeans and like sweatpants and sweatshirts and long sleeve shirts. They weren't dressed for golf. Meanwhile, I show up, golf pants, white belt, new shoes. I'm decked out. I have the Golficity podcast zip up. I was all decked out. But you know what? No, it was fun. It was good to be out there. That feeling, right? And you said you whiffed on the first shot. How excited were you to get out to that first tee?
I think that's it, man. I was all adrenaline. Myself. It just felt so good to be out there.
I shanked my first shot so far right on a par 3. I didn't care. I was just so excited to be out there, but I can't wait to get out there again.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It was, for me, it was just so unplanned too. Like I was surprised at how warm it was. It just so happened that my daughter was taking a nap. My wife was just watching her, and I'm like, can I steal out there for about an hour and a half? I didn't even have, no tee times or anything like that, and just got out there and did it. So it just felt good. I was a little amped up. That's for sure.
Yeah, man, that's great.
But I am loving everything in the Golf Podcast Facebook group. Everybody, posting, even the people who couldn't get outdoors, posting pictures of them, practicing indoors, putting practice while they're watching a little TV. Some people are hitting into some nets in their yard, working with like the Hackers RX on their alignment. So many great great things. A lot of guys got hit in the simulators. So we love that. Just keep sharing your experiences out there because I love seeing that people are getting out there and playing.
Yeah. And I'm starting to get even more excited because I just realized that Top Golf is coming up. And that's in 2 weeks. I can't wait. I all day at work, I'm on the website. I'm just looking at pictures. I can't wait. So you got me all excited. You were talking about everyone practicing with all their gadgets because you and I are going to be in there with the heat on, with the TVs, big screens, couple of drinks, food. It's going to be a really good time. That's kind of like our last, indoor, I guess, warm up before the real warm weather comes.
Yeah, no doubt. You know what? In case this is anybody's first time hearing it, Mike, tell our listeners the details of where we're going to be and when so that they can meet up if they're in the area.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll be at Top Golf in Edison, New Jersey on March 11th, Saturday morning, about 11 a.m. And we're going to run a live show. We're going to actually record our show there. But you and I, we're going to have some friendly competition. We're going to get some guys, some friends to come up with us. And, it's great. If you're a fan of the show and you're in the area, come out. You can hit some balls. You can hang out. We could chat. It'll be a good time.
Yeah. And you know what? If you're not in the area, make sure you're in the Facebook group. It's free to join. And Mike and I are going to be trying to do some live videos while we're there.
That's right.
Right. We just found out that you can do live video in groups. So we're going to test it out, see if we can make that work. And then you can get a little bit of an experience of being there. But Definitely do that. If you haven't already joined up, just go to Facebook, search the Golf Podcast under groups. You'll see us come up, free to join. It's an open group. Like I said, it's just a great group of guys and gals sharing their game, talking about what works, talking a lot about equipment. We've had some great tips on people talking about, equipment adjustments. We've seen people hop in there and ask about things like, they're shopping for a new wedge. Does anybody have any recommendations? So it's a really great way to engage with people who love the game as much as you do and are on that same journey, so to speak.
Yeah, man. I'm all about it. I love the group. It's a great place.
It's a good time. All right, Mike, let's do a word from our sponsors. And then I want to talk about this because we're going to talk about a very specific set of things that you can do when you're limited on time, when you have to, get warmed up before you get out there so that you don't whiff.
Yeah, right.
Because I'll tell you, that's the other thing I did. I did not
That's
warm
embarrassing.
up. I walked onto that tee from my car.
Yeah, man, I'm embarrassed for you.
Yeah. You'd be more embarrassed if you were there. It was terrific. But anyway, hey, if you're going to fail spectacularly, right?
Exactly. Yeah, good point.
All right. So anyway, let's do that. Let's do a word from our sponsor, and then we're going to jump right into it. This episode of the Golf Podcast is sponsored by Impact Snap. If you haven't tried this amazing new training aid yet, do yourself a favor and pick one up today. The Impact Snap is one of the hottest training devices on the market, and it's used by many top professionals, including world-renowned golf coach Hank Haney. The Impact Snap was even featured in the October 2016 edition of Golf Digest as one of the top 3 training aids, so you need to consider it. The Impact Snap is hands down the best training aid for teaching you that proper release. The simple feedback it provides helps teach you the correct motions of the wrists and forearms so you can compress the ball like never before. But what I love about the Impact Snap is that you can use it just about anywhere, right, Mike?
Yeah, exactly, Frank. And why I love the Impact Snap, just 15 swings a day keeps the shanks away. That's my motto for it. Whether it's in my office, in the living room, before I step out to the range, or even before the first tee, just 15 swings with the Impact Snap seems to get my release in proper form. And who doesn't have 60 seconds for 15 swings of a training device that is going to change your game dramatically? So learn how to compress the ball properly and train the proper powerful release that the elite players both on and off the tour use. Check them out at www.impactsnap.com and pick up yours today.
So, Mike, in a perfect world, and we've talked about this before, how we see a lot of the pros do it, and you see even on YouTube when they say like Jason Day's warm-up routine, arrive at the course 2 hours before tee time,
Right,
and you get that perfect world. We would all show up nice and relaxed way before our tee time and just start a nice long, very planned out warm-up routine. But in reality, that's just not possible for a lot of amateur golfers. Very often, like we've talked about before, you're squeezing something in, a round in early Saturday morning before you have family obligations, or you're rushing out there before or after work, or maybe if you're really ambitious on your lunch break, I don't know. But we all know you have other responsibilities outside playing golf. And because of that, we thought it'd be helpful for the average player to create an effective 15-minute golf warm-up routine. And this routine that Mike and I have designed here, it's going to really focus on just getting you ready to play in that very specific short period of time. All right. There's things I've talked about before on this show. I've talked about the importance of hitting the range, how it's helped my game. But again, when it's not a reality, you still have to find a way to warm up. And here is a situation where we're talking about very precisely 15 minutes because it's such a common window for people to be able to get ready. So, like I said, every golfer knows how important it is to get off to a good start. Just the last episode, we talked about how to put 2 good 9s together. And a big part of that is just getting off to a good start and starting off with a good front 9. But like I said, it's just the reality is sometimes we have that very short period of time. And this happens to me probably Mike more frequently than not.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I never find more than 30 minutes max, at a warm up just based on busy schedule and life.
Right. Exactly. So look, we're going to talk about the specifics of the routine in a second. But before we do, I think it's important that we set the concept. We set the address like the issue of what we're actually trying to accomplish when we warm up, because there are a lot of players who are confused on this at this point. But here's what I want to say. The goal of a warm up is not to improve your game in some way. It's not a practice session. Sometimes you got to just remind yourself of that, especially when it's an abbreviated time this much, because I've seen a lot of times where people, they just think when they get near that range or they get near the putting, practice putting surface or the chipping area or whatever, they just kind of go back into that mode they're used to during their practice, because they maybe come there to practice and they start working on some area of their game. And I think that's just, especially in a short period of time, that's the last thing you want to take out on the course, like half in your mind, half working on something. When you have this kind of a limited time, the goal here is to get your body ready for the challenge of just playing that day. You want to work on finding your rhythm, warming up your muscles, and getting your mind focused on the task at hand. So similarly, let's say you were a marathon runner, right? Or maybe take it a little easier. You're going to run a 3K or a 5K, right? When you show up there that day to run your race, you're not going to be out there working on like fixing some element of your stride or trying out some like new stride or new breathing technique. No. What are you going to do? You're going to warm up. You're going to stretch. You're going to warm up your muscles a little bit. You're going to get ready to go. Your focus is just warming up for that action. There's always, let's say you wanted to do a little bit better. You want to beat your best time or whatever. You can decompress that later and then work that out in your practice sessions. We've always kind of said this. That's what good golfers do. Switching back to golf and away from running, good golfers will recognize things during their rounds of areas and things they need to work on and set aside pre-planned, purposeful, we talk about purposeful practice at some other time, some time that they can carve that out and then have those focused practice sessions rather than jumping around. But here, it's the mental aspect of warming up that's really surprisingly important. Okay. Because when you first get to the course, your mind is probably thinking about a million different things. None of them are golf. You know it, Mike. You're thinking about business, right, clients, things that are going on. And if you don't warm up, you're going to remain distracted. So warming up not only helps you prevent injury by physically warming up the body and the muscles, it also helps the mind by shifting into golf mode, so to speak. And it helps you start to get into that rhythm, the rhythm that I didn't have when I missed the ball. Right. So we're getting back into that rhythm. And then when I was able to get into that rhythm, like I said, I hit one of the best drives I've ever hit, and it's February. So it tells you how important rhythm and things like that are. So move yourself away from saying, hey, I got 5 minutes. Let me work on some new thing I saw on YouTube on how to fix my slice. Forget about it. You're going to be thinking about that all day. It's a recipe for disaster. Instead, just say, let me get my swing in my groove, so to speak, and then I'm going to get out there.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I liked, now I started to implement this, is for me, Frank, it starts before I get to the course. So like you said, there's a lot of things on your mind when you get there. I try to clean off the desk, so to speak, of all the junk up there in my thoughts, just clear thoughts, think about golf, especially while I'm driving to the course. And I start thinking about some of the things that I've learned from maybe the prior round, whether it's on my Arcos or whatever it was on my scorecard, pushing shots right. So that was a big thing for me from last Thursday. I'll drive to the course instead of thinking about, the work I just finished or the client I have to call back or what time I have to get home for dinner or whatever the case may be. I'll think about pushing my shots right and, being conscious about where my wrists are at impact and just focusing on that because, you nailed it. You can warm up in the car on the way to the round.
Yeah. Why not start warming up your mind? Start shifting that thought, because again, when you have that abbreviated time, you got to use it and be smart about it. So diving into it, let's first talk about one big important thing. A lot of golfers feel like it's absolutely necessary to hit the driving range before they tee off, but it's just simply not the case. If you only have 15 minutes, and again, I am going to be one to constantly tell you and dispel, it's only when we have that abbreviated time that I'm going to go after this. I'm going to show you how you can still warm up without the range, so to speak. But if you have better planning or you find that you just by chance or luck, you're able to get there sooner, then by all means get to the range. I've said it on so many different episodes. I've talked about the importance of it and warming up, hitting actual balls, how much that's helped my game. But here again, we're talking about real world, real life reality. And when you only have that 15 minutes, you're going to have to cross that driving range off your list. By the time you take your time to walk over to the range, get some balls, hit some shots, your 15 minutes is already up. And then you're rushing to the tee. You're in a rushed mode. That's the extent of your warm up. So here again, we're trying to maximize pre-round efficiency on a very, very tight schedule because so many people experience that tight schedule. And if you're not able to get to the course about an hour before your round, you're going to have to start thinking about take the range off, off your list of things to do, so to speak. If you can get there an hour before, 100%. Look for the range, get out there. And like I said before, if you charge you for it, invest a couple bucks because it's going to really help you around. But if you can't, we still have a way that you can get prepared. It doesn't mean that you have no preparation. I think that's the important point I'm trying to drive home here, right?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I love the idea of skipping the range in this situation because I agree. You won't need it, especially with 15 minutes to go.
Right. So let's talk about let's show them exactly what we mean by talking about a real life scenario, right? So let's say you arrive to the golf course for an 11 a.m. tee time, very popular type of thing on the weekend, whatever it may be. After you go into the pro shop, pay for your round, you walk back outside, you see it's 10:40, right? Now, that really with the starter, you should be at that first tee a few minutes early because nobody's going to like it if you're running up to it that minute. So what does that tell you? You got about 15 minutes to warm up. Now that sounds like a very common scenario. Question is, where do you go? What do you do first? So we've narrowed it down to 5 steps, 5 important steps that'll get all the very most important aspects of your game in gear. So the first thing you want to do to get started, head directly to that practice putting green, put your clubs down somewhere and take that putter out. Grab a couple balls and find a nice open stretch of green for your first few putts. And these few initial putts, you're looking to have them be rather long. At least 30 feet, if not longer. And the goal here, it's very simple. You just want to judge the speed of the greens for the day. And this is the biggest variable from day to day in a golf course. Remember, the fairways aren't going to change too much from day to day. Yeah, sure, if it's raining, things could be a little bit heavier or whatever it may be. But the greens can change dramatically, one round to the next. And again, everything we're talking about here, although abbreviated and a little bit faster, is largely what the pros do. Mike, when we go to some of the PGA Tour tournaments, we see exactly this. These guys are hitting those nice, really long putts across the green, and they're just getting a feel. Right. What's the green feel like today? What's the speed feel like at different points in the green, that type of thing. But again, we don't have a lot of time. So sticking to the plan, sticking to the rhythm, you're just going to hit a couple balls like that. All right. Once you've hit a few of those long putts, Time to gather those balls, move on to step 2. And again, I'm going to put all this in the show notes, which you can get to by going to golficity.com/episode 157. I'll link to the article that goes through this step by step, because I think it's a smart thing to maybe just print the article or just jot it down somewhere so you remember, when you do hit that moment when you only have 15 minutes, you don't have to remember every step. You can just pull it out and look at as a quick reminder. But anyway, just gather those golf balls around the hole. You want to knock in a few short putts. You're looking for these just to be flat, only 3-4 feet in length. And what that's going to do is that's going to continue to help give you that feel for the green, while at the same time warming up your putting stroke. Because that long stroke, great, you get that view, but most of your putts are going to be taken shorter. We're hoping you're not putting 30-foot putts on every hole. So
right.
We got to get that regular, real, putting stroke rhythm. So now you've got a feel for the greens, you got a nice, good feel, and you've also got your putting stroke warmed up a bit. Okay. Move on to step 3. Take a wedge out of your bag. And here, we're talking about 15 minutes. Maybe we're 5 minutes in so far. So it's not a ton of balls. We're just doing a little bit, just getting a little bit of work in. Take that wedge out of your bag. Find a place near the putting green to hit a couple chip shots. And a lot of golf courses don't allow you to chip onto the putting green. You got to respect that. But what you could do is just chip off to the side, use the tee as set a tee in the grass as a target or whatever it may be, throw a towel on the ground. And the result of your chip shots, it's not terribly important, but what you're trying to do here is get a feel for the rhythm and tempo of your swing. So starting slow, just getting that rhythm and tempo. Remember how important that is, right?
Right. And the one problem I have with step 3, step 1 and 2, okay, it's like, it's more fun than anything when you putt. When you start chipping and you start sculling shots or you start duffing little chip shots, your pre-round confidence can quickly get shattered. This actually happened to me Thursday. I went over to the chipping green and I had some really bad skull shot chips. So my confidence before I even step up to the first tee is kind of going down. So when I was putting and it was nice and easy, because it's pretty easy to do, especially when there's nothing on the line and, you're reading the same putt over and over again. What would you say you do in this event if you're struggling with these shots? Do you quickly just give up and move on to step 4 here, or what would you do?
I think if you give up on it, it might set a bad tone. But again, we know we're limited. But I think more important would be not overly obsessing over, like I said here, hitting your target.
Okay,
right?
Got it.
We've got a basic target there, but as I said, the results aren't terribly important. We're just looking for that rhythm. I don't even mind personally if you just keep your head down and don't even look where the ball goes.
Don't even look at the ball. Got it.
For a minute, just get that feel, just that whooshing of hitting the ground type of feel. And with the putts, the other thing that's important, yes, it can be fun, but I think it brings up a really good point in that a lot of people kind of go on this mental autopilot when they hit the putting green. And I think you got to work your way away from that. If you're just going out there and just smacking a couple balls, you're really not doing anything for yourself. This is where it helps with that thing I talked about earlier with starting to shift your mind and your thoughts away from everything else and towards golf. And by just bringing a little bit of mindfulness to it and really applying some thinking of getting that feel. So if you just go out there and you're just talking with your buddy, hey, what we do last night, it was a good time, whatever it may be, and you're just kind of looking up and looking around and putting the balls around, it's not going to be doing much for you. You want to just kind of start to zero in. Sure, have a little bit of fun with it, but start to zero in, start to put, your thoughts together and just get that feel and hitting that. But then after the chipping, do it. If it's really causing you grief or you're having trouble with chipping, if nothing else, it's something like I say to note. This is not a time for practice. If you're having a real problems with chipping, I'm going to tell you what, you're not going to fix them in 3 minutes before you get out there. I would use it as an indication that you need to change up your strategy a little bit for the day. Say, well, I don't have a whole lot of confidence in my chipping. I'm going to rework my strategy to ideally, maybe hit some different shots into greens to try to hit greens and not have to rely on chipping. Or if I'm tight and it could be a chip or a putt, then I say I'll err on the side of pulling out the putter because my chipper, my chipping just wasn't there when I was warming up. And then making the note of it to say, I'm going to go back to that. This is a great thing you can practice in your backyard. Something to practice.
Yeah, sure.
So doing that, getting in there, moving through it. But again, it's all about getting that rhythm and tempo, starting to get that working, After you hit those few chip shots, moving on to step 4, set those golf balls aside. You want to take a couple full swings without hitting a ball, of course. One little side caveat, a fun little thing that we do before we tee off on the local course here is to the direct left of the first tee, there's a long, just open area and then a river. And we'll always hit at least one just ball before we tee off, just as like a quick scrub ball, and just try to carry it over the river. That aside, not every golf course is just going to let you just drive one
just
into the
off.
distance.
Right.
So here, put the golf balls aside. You just want to take a few swings to warm up your muscles. Again, something that I think is dramatically overlooked, the amount of muscles and balance that are used, the torque that's put on the spine. It's actually crazy to just go out there and just swing full speed right off the bat. You know, it's just asking for some sort of injury or some sort of muscle cramp or whatever. So I like to just start slow, brushing the grass, and then swing a little bit harder and a little bit harder. But you just want to start taking some real full swings. I usually do this with my 7-iron. And if you're so inclined, pause to do a little bit of stretching. That's what I'll do. I'll take a couple swings. I'll feel where I'm tight. I'll do a couple of very specific stretches for those areas. And if you want to up that intensity a little bit, you could swing a weighted club, or some other warm-up device like the orange whip. I mention it a lot here because I'm a fan. It's in my bag. I've noticed it's helped me for my back, so I use that as a stretching. Even something like the impact snap or something like that you may just want to work in there a little bit to set your mind and remind you of just some areas of your swing that you want to lock in from a rhythm and tempo. Remember, impact snap, those, orange whip, great training aids off the course for your real practice. Here, I would just use them as reminders of getting yourself back into that rhythm and tempo. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And this step, something I always do. I always try swinging something before stepping off, whether I get a chance to get to the range or not. This is something I've always done, and it just gets me that loose, like you said, just start swinging and getting the body moving.
Get you limber. Yeah. And
and
this is something and understanding. So we're talking about a very systematic thing with that time frame that we have here. Give yourself enough time to take 15, 20 good swings. I'm not just talking about the 2-3 practice swings you take before you actually tee off. We're actually working this in. So just quickly going back, like I said, a couple of long lag putts, couple of shorter putts, getting warmed up, getting a feel for the greens. Most important part of steps 1 and 2 is getting that feel for the greens. 3, starting to warm up your tempo and your rhythm with those shorter swings, doing chip shots. Then put the ball aside. Step 4, start swinging, full swings and getting really warmed up. Now, the last thing you want to do, and Mike, this loops right back around to confidence you talked about. And I think this is one of the things that's helped me the most with my confidence in my game is just a couple minutes left to go. Like I said, maybe we've spent 10, 12 minutes so far. We've got anywhere from 3 and 5 minutes left. Grab a couple balls, go back to that putting surface, take your putter out. And what you want to do here is just nice short putts, just short putts, easy putts. And this is all about setting your mind and the rhythm and setting your confidence. You really want the last thing you see before you step on that first tee is see that ball falling in the cup, falling in the hole. I won't walk to that first tee until I've made one. And because being pressed for time, I know not to set myself up with a bunch of 10-footers,
Right.
I'll get in there, a couple 3 to 5 footers and just get that rhythm, that confidence just to hear it in that bottom of the cup, just seeing that and just kind of locks it in mentally. And man, does it change things for you when you're out there. I've talked about this study a lot of times, but there was that, and I forget which college it was. There was a college that they had the college golf team and they split them in half and they told them, all right, you guys, I want you to visualize every putt going in before you before you putt it. And the other guys, I want you to visualize it just missing. And the people who visualized it going in were I think it was a 50%, differential in making more putts than the people who visualized missing. So it's unbelievable what the mind can do. I mean, we all know it because we say when we tell ourselves don't hit it in the lake and we think lake, we hit it in the lake.
Right.
The mind replicates the messages that you're sending. The body replicates the messages sent by the mind. So just send yourself that quick reminder and you will see that confidence. So that's it. 15 minutes. You're out. You've worked on all quickly little bits of every area of your game. You've physically warmed up your body. You've warmed up your mind, and you take that first tee, take out that club that you're going to use. And if you have a couple minutes downtime, still 1 or 2 more minutes while you're just waiting for the starter to give you that go, you can continue warming up your muscles with some more practice swings. And when it's your turn, you're going to be ready. You're going to be mentally ready, physically ready. You go for it.
I got to tell you, Frank, I actually set up 1-footers before I head out there. I do. Maybe sometimes I'll miss them purposely just to kind of lure my playing competitors into a false,
The hustle, huh?
The hustle. But no, I love the confidence boost right before you go out. I mean, I do. It's something similar I do on the range is if I'm coming off the range to go to the first tee, I'll finish with my best club, something like that. But in this case, absolutely. I love coming back to those short putts. That makes perfect sense. I just like walking up to the green walking up to the first tee feeling good, feeling, positive, and not feeling rushed and not feeling lost.
Yep.
So
that's it. And even with this, you can, even though you are kind of rushed because it's 15 minutes, by following a very specific rhythm like this, you can take that rushed feeling away. Right. Because you have that plan. You have that plan and just switch into execution mode. And it in a lot of ways too, that mentally simulates what you do actually on your round because you have your strategy, your plan for each shot, and then you switch to execution. Same thing here. We've got a strategy, a plan. It's not haphazard. I think a lot of times what I see is that when people are limited with time, their warm up does get very haphazard. It's like slap a couple balls, around the putting green and then swing a bunch of times and stretch and just, wherever it takes you. But when you have this, it's like, I'm going to hit step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hit the first tee and go. You're already setting yourself in that execution, rhythm. Just boom, just do it, execute. So I think it's great. And like I said, it's one of those things we want to cover here because it's real world. It's not just, what we're dreaming about. We all dream to be able to spend the whole day on the course. We all dream to have Tiger's practice schedule. I was reading through that the other day. It's like on a practice day for Tiger, warm up for an hour, play 9 holes, come in for lunch, play 9 more holes, hit the range for a little while and then sometimes wrap it up with 9 more. We don't all have that thing. You can't all do that. So there's reality. And then it's just like I said, the reality of me whiffing my first,
right.
It's just like, it's reality. Things like that. It happens. You just kind of understand you work with what you have. And if you've only got 15 minutes, it doesn't mean everything has to go out the window. Work with it and you can make it work.
Makes sense.
So here's to the kickoff of the season, us playing. For me, I guess from that first swing, it can only get better.
It can only get better,
That's
man.
the positive thinking that I'm going to use, at least for now. My positive excuse thinking. But I'm excited to get out there again. It got a little cold, but today was a little warmer again. It got up to about 60. So it's only a matter of time before me and you are out there. We're playing a bunch again. And when we do, we can kind of report back here on how all these things are going.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It is getting warmer, and I can't wait.
All right. So that's everything we have for you this week. Remember, keep those suggestions, topic suggestions, instructional stuff that you want us to cover here. Keep those coming. We've got some great ones posted in the Facebook group this week. I've made note of every single one of them. One suggestion that we had was about club selection from the rough, which was excellent. I think it's often overlooked. It just lies in general in club selection. So Mike and I are going to be working on that. We're going to be testing some things out, and then we're going to have that for you in a couple weeks. But keep them coming because we know what to talk about, what we struggle with. That's what we gear a lot of these episodes towards is the things Mike and I have struggled with, but we know there's other things that you guys are struggling with too. So if you fill us in with that, we are going to work on it and we're going to talk about it here. And don't be embarrassed to say it. Look, to our, tens of thousands of weekly listeners, I have admitted my embarrassing moment. So if I can do it to that, you guys can do it too. Post it in the Facebook group. Let us know what embarrassing moment you had or what you want to fix or what's driving you crazy. And we will find ways to structure it and talk about it here on the show. All right. So that's everything we have. We'll see everybody again next week.